You know, it's actually kind of funny. Arc Raiders is easily one of the most approachable extraction shooters ever released. But there's one mechanic that's surprisingly punishing, and that's skill points. With no respec system in the game unless you're willing to wipe all of your progress through an expedition reset, every single one of your 75 skill points is precious. Make the wrong choices and you're stuck with a permanently underpowered raider until you bite the bullet and start all over again. I've spent over 30 hours testing some skills, watched the community tear them apart frame by frame, and I'm here to save you from the biggest skill point traps in the game. So today we're talking about the 7 worst skills in Arc Raiders that you need to avoid or need to at least think more deeply about. These aren't just suboptimal picks. A lot of times these are legitimately bad investments that will leave you feeling like you were better off spending points in just about anything else. And believe me, the game does not make this easy. Skill descriptions are vague, some abilities straight up don't work as advertised, and others have such brutal diminishing returns that maxing them out is basically lighting your skill points on fire. So let's get into it. Let's start with Slip and Slide. This one gets so many new players because it sounds perfect on paper. You slide further, you slide faster. More mobility in an extraction shooter is always good. But here's what the game doesn't tell you. The skill has some of the worst diminishing returns in the entire mobility tree. Content creator Archaic did frame-by-frame testing and found that while the first point or two does give you a noticeable boost, points 3 through 5 barely move the needle at all. The slide speed increase is practically identical whether you're going down stairs, down hills, or across flat ground. You'll go slightly further with all 5 points maxed, but the difference between 2 out of 5 and 5 out of 5 is so small, you really don't need to bother. And the real kicker is sliding is already really good without any skill investment. You don't have to take this. So why dump all 5 precious points here when you could be maxing out things like Marathon Runner or Youthful Lungs instead? So if you absolutely must take Slip and Slide, stop out 1 point, maybe 2. But those last 3 points, put them literally anywhere else. Marathon Runner scales way better, Youthful Lungs gives you consistent value, and you'll actually feel the difference. The next one is Calming Stroll, which is sneaky because it, again, sounds perfect for Arc Raiders. While walking, your stamina regenerates as if you were standing still. Great, right? Constant stamina regen while moving sounds exactly what you need for those long treks across the map. But there's some fine print. Calming Stroll only works while using the dedicated walk button, not while jogging, which is what your character does by default. So to actually benefit from this, you need to deliberately slow yourself down to walking speed. And to make things even worse, it doesn't even work while aiming. So the exact situation where you'd want constant stamina regen, walking around during tense standoffs or repositioning in combat, completely disables the skill. And in practice, you almost never use the walk function. I know I haven't, because jogging is completely normal and recovering stamina is fine. So skip Calming Stroll completely. If you need the stamina regeneration, again, Marathon Runner and Youthful Lungs are better, without requiring you to have to push a different button just to get the benefits. Another mistake that people make is over-investing in Effortless roll. So dodge rolling is obviously an important skill. You can dodge damage, get out of the way, make yourself harder to hit. So reducing the stamina cost sounds smart. And to be fair, it's not completely useless this time. The first point does give you something. The problem is that, like a lot of other skills, it provides such diminishing returns past that first point that spending more is kind of a waste. Community testing, again, Archaic shows that while you do get an extra dodge roll out of 3 of 5, the stamina savings from points 4 and 5 are negligible. Players can't even reliably detect the difference in actual gameplay, even when they're trying to measure it. So even maxed out, you're not going to notice a meaningful increase in how many times you can dodge before exhausting your stamina. 1 to 3 points max. Never invest those extra 2 points. The next skill is the exact same story. So Heroic Leap increases your sprint dodge roll distance, which is genuinely useful. Again, dodge rolling is important. Breaking line of sight or escaping arcs. First 2 points they deliver, you can feel the difference between 0 points and 3 points. But the difference between 3 points and 5 points is almost nothing. Again, frame-by-frame analysis from multiple people confirms that maxing this out provides such a minimal additional distance that it's basically a waste. Which is a little frustrating because this is really deep in the mobility tree, so you're making a pretty significant commitment just to get to it. But stop at 3 out of 5 if you're playing aggressively. The last 2, throw them literally anywhere else. I think this skill is one where I was really tempted to take, but it's just a straight up trickery, straight up lie. Sturdy ankles. Reducing fall damage sounds great. Arc Raiders has a lot of vertical gameplay. There are millions of times where I've fallen and taken some fall damage. A few times you've fallen to your death, right? With the idea being that maybe it'll save you from dying, so instead you'll just be hurt a lot instead of going down. But the problem is, for some reason, which they do not specify, the skill only affects non-lethal falls. Falls where you're going to survive anyway. Falls that will kill you outright, the perk does nothing. Testing shows that even with all 5 points invested, you're maybe saving 5 to 10 health on the types of falls where this actually triggers, which is not nothing, but it's nowhere near valuable enough to justify spending 5 points on that 75 point budget. So skip this one entirely. There's another perk, which I think is technically accurate in its writing, but feels really misleading, and that is good as new. The description says, while under a healing effect, stamina regeneration is increased. That sounds great, right? Constant stamina boost while you're healing sounds like a game changer. But if you think about it, good as new only works when you're actively being healed by consumables. Bandages heal you over the span of a few seconds, and that's it. So good as new gives you increased stamina regeneration for those few seconds and then turns off. You're not getting sustained stamina boost. You're getting a tiny window of recovery that lasts about as long as the healing over effect time. In practice, this means that the skill is active for maybe 5 to 10 seconds per bandage use, if that. And if you're standing still and your stamina is already full, you're, again, not benefiting at all. In short, this is a skill that's probably active for less than a minute in the entire game, which, I mean, just think about that. You really don't need this, especially investing so many points into it. So yeah, just avoid this one unless you need something that's beyond it that can only be accessed through it, but don't expect a lot because this is really just going to be a useless skill. Now there's one more skill, and I'll call it a quote-unquote trap, though it's not really that because it is useful, but I feel like it is a trap in the sense that it really appeals to a lot of people, and by focusing on it first, which is something that's very easy to do, I've seen multiple people do it, you can kind of nerf your entire build to start with, and that's security breach. Now, when I started the game, I thought I was just going to mainline security breach, just go straight there, all 36 points, 36 of my first points, straight into it, so I can get those, great loot spots. Of course, the skill was nerfed. It's not as great anymore. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's a noob trap that everyone just goes straight for this while ignoring things like stamina regeneration, reducing weight, those kind of things that are way more beneficial for newer players. It's just far too easy to end up with a slow, low stamina raider whose only advantage is you can open one special type of box, right? I've personally found that, especially when you're starting, it's way more beneficial to be running a balanced build. But yeah, so just think about what you're sacrificing for security breach. That's I won't say it's a bad skill, but you will be sacrificing things unless you are a very high level. We've covered 7 trap skills, so what should you actually be doing instead? 1, I would start with your mobility foundation. Marathon runner maxed, youthful runner maxed. Those are non-negotiable. 1 to 2 points in slip and slide, not 5. Grab carry the momentum for some free sprinting after your dodge rolls. Move into survival, get in round crafting. Silent scavenger, move on, get broad shoulders, those kind of things. All that will give you more mobility. Then you can start picking up some conditioning skills, get a little bit of used to the weight, and then move on to things like proficient prior, which people did show can save you up to, a second or two at max level, which isn't a ton, but it's not nothing. There are some skills that you can start exploring after that. The idea is to have a balanced approach, at least when you're starting. At first 20 to 30 points, just be balanced. Be self-sufficient through crafting, efficient looting, and surviving. You won't have access to security breach or any of the other pinnacles, but you'll have a raider who performs consistently well in pretty much every situation, instead of excelling at one thing while being mediocre at everything else. So there you have it, 7 skills that will ruin your Arc Raiders build and make you want to reset, which is not great. Focus on things that are proven by everyone, things that everyone recommends. Marathon runner, youthful lungs, in-round crafting, those kind of things. You build for consistency. You can feel free to experiment, of course, or if you always plan on resetting, by all means, do whatever you want. But I just wanted to share things that I managed to avoid by doing a lot of research before I started. And I know a lot of people aren't going to do that, so I hope I could help. If this helped you at all, hit that like button and subscribe because I've got more Arc Raider stuff coming. Leave a comment and let me know, did you fall into any of these skill traps? Are there any things that you feel like were wasting your points? There's a link to my full current skill tree in the description below if you want to see exactly how I've allocated my points. I'm by no means level 75, but I'm, 30 hours in. Have a decent amount of progress. For now, though, I think that's it. I'll see you next time.